Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Samantha Kennedy, and I'm so excited to have all of you here for the Set Yourself Up for Success free online teleclass. We have looking at this now, almost 130 people registered for this class. And I just want to say every single one of you is a truly admirable interpreter, and you're going to go far. And that's because the fact that you registered for this webinar really says something about your commitment to your career and yourself. So kudos to all of you for that. So let me run down what we're going to learn about today. Today we're going to be talking about setting yourself up as a business entity, as an interpreter, and then protecting yourself as a new freelance interpreter. And this is going to include understanding different kinds of business setups. I'll also be talking a little bit about at the end about next steps that we can take to really set yourself up for success in your new career. And I'll also be answering questions at the end of this call as well. So a few logistics before we dive in. This call is scheduled for 60 minutes, but it may go a bit over depending on how many people are on the call and how many questions we have. We will definitely have to cut it off around 90. So if there are still questions after that, I'll explain how to get those questions answered after the call is over. All of you calling in on the phone right now are muted. However, I'll be explaining how to virtually raise your hand to ask a question at the end of the call. And if you're attending through the website, you can ask a question there on that left side in the Ask a Question box. And I can get to those at the end of the call as well. There's also a handout on the web page that you can download, the way that you access this call via the web. It's best if you can follow along with this handout because it has visuals and everything that'll make it a lot more clear, and also some links that I'll be asking you to go to. So if you're on the web version, you'll see it up there on the upper left-hand side. If you're on the phone, you can just go to the page that's listed in the web, in the email that you got with all the call instructions, and it says Attend by Web, and so you can click on that and get the worksheet. I also just sent it to all of you who registered. I sent you a link to that you can download the worksheet as well. If you need a moment to go find it, you can look for it while I'm introducing myself over the next couple of minutes. The worksheet is perfect also for saving or printing out if you have any instructions. If you have all the instructions that we go over today, and then you can use them at a later time if you are not able to listen live today or if you just want to go over it again. Lastly, this event will be recorded, so if you miss anything on the call or if you have to leave early, you can always go back and listen again. I'll be sending the link to the recording to everybody later on today. So I just want to start out briefly by telling you a little bit about who I am and why I decided to set up this course. Again, my name is Samantha Kennedy. I'm an NIC certified interpreter, and I actually started out as a teacher of the deaf. I worked at 2 deaf schools, the Learning Center for the Deaf in the Boston area and Rocky Mountain Deaf School here in Colorado, and have my master's degree in deaf education, and I got that before I became an interpreter. When I later became an interpreter full-time, I interpreted for a while as a freelance interpreter, and now I own an interpreting agency in Denver, which is Taika Sign Language Interpreting Services. When I started interpreting full-time, I was learning how to be a better interpreter and improve my skills and all of those things that you really do throughout your career. But before I could even really fully dive into that, I needed to get more work. And in order to do that, I needed to figure out how to set myself up as a business. Because that's really what we are when we freelance. We're breathing, walking, talking, signing businesses. So really when someone hires you to interpret, they are hiring a business, or they should be. And when I started out, I had never done that before, and I wasn't sure what paperwork I needed, whether I needed to set up an LLC, how to protect myself. I was very confused about all of this. So I actually spent a great deal of time, went through a lot of anxiety, and also spent quite a bit of money with accountants and other professionals just to get myself set up. And it all happened and it worked out, but it was probably about a year before I felt confident that I had everything set up correctly. Now that I'm an agency owner, I see the same things from new interpreters who are signing on with my agency. They're asking me whether they should establish an LLC, what bank account to give me for a direct deposit, and essentially how to do all of this. So I recognize the significant need in the community for more education around this, and I actually spoke with several of you before launching this course to find out more about your particular questions and challenges, and these things were coming up over and over again, and I saw even more clearly that support in this and many other areas is still needed. So I am not an accountant or a tax attorney, so none of what I'm teaching you should be considered tax or legal advice. However, as an agency owner, there are a lot of laws and tax regulations that I'm required to know in detail and to follow. So I'll be going over all of those with you today. And I've also consulted with my own accountant and presented to him this entire course and all of the material in the course. So I have his approval or the approval of my tax professional on this course's content moving forward. However, if you do have a particularly complicated situation or you require a lot more in-depth explanation of anything in this course, you might want to talk to or consider talking with an accountant or tax attorney as well. Okay, so now we're actually going into the core content of this webinar. So one of the first questions I get from interpreters, and actually this is one of the first questions I had when I was starting out, is whether to set up a business as a freelance interpreter and what kind of business that should be. Should it be a sole proprietorship, an LLC? What should that look like? And essentially, some interpreters aren't sure whether to get paid for their services as an individual under their Social Security number and just deposit those payments into their personal bank account, or to set up a separate business to conduct all of things, basically all things interpreting. There are a lot of reasons people hesitate to set up businesses, and I'll get to those in just a minute. My answer for you is that if you want to protect your personal assets, meaning your personal savings, your bank accounts, and even your possessions, and if you want to present your services in a professional way, you need to establish a business, and that business needs to be an LLC. I'll repeat that. If you want to protect your personal assets and you want to present your services in a professional way, you need to establish a business, and that business needs to be an LLC. Let's talk about why. Well, so when you work as an individual, just yourself as a person, your assets, which means your money and your possessions, are not protected if someone decided to sue you as an interpreter. So please know, this is not in any way meant to be scary or intimidating. I just want to put this into straightforward and clear language about why an LLC is important. And trust me, it's so easy to set one up so that none of you have to worry about anything like that. So again, if you work as an individual, your assets are not protected if someone decided to sue you as an interpreter, meaning your personal assets. Let me give you an example. So say I offer my interpreting services as Samantha Kennedy, the person, using my Social Security number, and when people hire me to interpret, they are hiring Samantha Kennedy, the person. Maybe I was even smart and set up a separate bank account for business payments just to keep track of all of that. But then someone sues me for an amount beyond what my liability covers, and they win. I don't have enough money to cover the expense in my business bank account, so I think, oh, too bad for them. I don't have enough money to actually pay them with my business account, so I guess I'm off the hook. And that's actually absolutely not true. So since I'm conducting my work as myself and not as a business or not as an LLC, they have the right to now go after my personal assets, which can mean my personal bank accounts or even maybe my possessions. Again, this isn't to scare you. It's just lawsuits are actually really rare in this industry as interpreters, and we all should have professional liability insurance that will fully cover us. But I want to explain exactly why LLCs are so important before I show you step-by-step how to easily avoid any of this ever happening and to step-by-step set up an LLC. So setting yourself up as an LLC is the best first step to protecting yourself and your assets as a freelance interpreter. When you establish an LLC, your personal assets are protected. So let's say if someone were to sue you as a business, they cannot come after your personal assets if you have an LLC established. And this is a federal designation. An LLC is a nationwide designation, so it doesn't vary by state. So it's like putting up a giant wall between your business and your personal assets with LLC written across it in huge letters. Another example, so say when I interpret, I do offer my services as PICA Sign Language Interpreting Services with a tax ID number, not my Social Security number. So if someone were to sue me, or my business actually, for my services in any way, they could only come after the assets in my business, nothing in my personal account or my possessions. If that makes sense. So even if my business doesn't have enough funds to satisfy the suit, but I had a lot of other money in my personal account, under no circumstances could they come after that. So to me, there's really no reason not to set up an LLC. Like, it's a no-brainer, but I've heard several reasons of why people don't want to set them up. So the first one is that people have said it's too expensive. Setting up an LLC is really actually not very expensive. You can establish one online for as little as $39. I think that's the lowest that I've seen, plus your state filing fee, which is usually well under $50. I know when you're just starting out, any amount can seem like a lot, but A, it's just so worth the peace of mind knowing that you're protected. And B, this is your career, your business, your professional image. So to agency owners or to direct customers you work with, having an established business or an LLC just appears, and in my opinion, is so much more professional. See, and I think of it this way. I like to think of things that I want to buy in terms of how many jobs I'll need to work to pay for it. So say you earn, I'm making this up, $30 an hour. I know it's arbitrary. I'm making this up at a 2-hour minimum, and you get travel time, and you pay $39 for your LLC, plus a filing fee of $30, so that's $69. Working one job essentially pays for your LLC, maybe two if you consider the taxes you have to take out. And it's just a one-time fee, and it allows you to start writing off subsequent business expenses, saving you money during tax time. I've also heard some interpreters want to wait until they're certified to start their LLC. I would say no. As soon as you're working, you should be protecting yourself and your business. There's a misunderstanding that you can't be an LLC if you're only one person. You absolutely can. Taxes aren't as complicated as you think. Actually, before I started my agency and had contractors and employees, I did my taxes for years with TurboTax. So they're not actually as complicated as you might think they might be. The biggest reason I think people don't necessarily start right away with setting up their LLCs is that they don't know how. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do next, step by step, right now. And this is where the worksheet comes in. Again, it's on the upper left-hand corner of the webcast screen, or you can download it from the most recent email that I sent all of you, and that way you can follow along. You could actually set up your LLC while listening to this presentation live. However, if you're not sure what the name of your LLC is going to be, and I know that can be really important, you may need to follow these steps a little bit later. So you can listen to this part of the recording again, and maybe note what time it is in the recording right now. And then when you're ready to set it up and you have your name ready, you can also save and print the handout and just follow the steps in the recording and the handout later. So you could be listening to this part of the webinar again and following along in your worksheet when you're ready. So either way, get the worksheet out now so that you can click on the links that are provided in it. Okay, hopefully I already have that ready. So the first thing that you'll need before you register your LLC is a name for your business. You'll need this before you can actually move on with any of the other steps. It can be as simple as being just your name. I know some people who do that. So I could have like Kennedy Interpreting LLC or Samantha Signs LLC or something like that. It can be a really fun part to come up with the name of your business, but there's one crucial step that most people, including me when I first started out, that most people miss when they're considering a name for their business. And that is that they don't check to see if anyone else in a similar industry has trademarked that name. So what that means is that if you choose a name for your business and another business in a similar industry, in this case it could be interpreting or maybe sign language instruction or deaf services, if someone in a similar industry already has trademarked that name, no matter where they are in the country, they can legally have you change your business name if you take that name and they find out about it. This might not seem actually like much of a big deal, but if agencies or if other direct customers have gotten to know you and your services by your business name, it can be really difficult to have to reestablish yourself under a new name and go through the process of changing your business name. So again, this isn't a scare tactic. It's just to clearly explain, just really explain things. No beating around the bush, just about setting up your